The video that follows is making these Danish cinnamon snails, something which I understand is traditional at Christmas time and holidays in Denmark. You can buy them in most bakeries here in North America as well, called different things, cinnamon swirls or whatever, but it's basically the same thing. It's not that complicated a recipe or anything, quite easy to do. And the frosting that I'm using is a cream cheese frosting. It's traditionally glazed with just a icing sugar and mixed with a little bit of milk to make a glaze like, but I like the taste of cream cheese frosting better, so that's what I've gone with. Let's have a taste test on one of these and then we'll proceed to make it. I'll select the smallish one. Very soft. I love the flavor of the cinnamon. And as I've said before, I prefer it with the cream cheese icing. They are very good. Quite easy to make, and as I said, they freeze easy. I'm standing in a different location to do my taste testing today. Merry Christmas, everybody. Christmas is 2 days away. I think tomorrow, when this comes out, will be Christmas Eve. I received an early Christmas gift from my brother. This is two of my great aunts. It's a drawing in pastels, which would have been done in the early 1890s, the late 1890s, or the early 1900s. Both of these ladies have died of old age more than 30 years ago. I absolutely love it. It used to hang in their home here on Campobello, and when they passed away and the house was sold, the daughter of this one here, Mimi, her daughter sold the house, so she parceled out everything that was in the house to various members of the family. I have a Chinese tea service, beautiful thing, and I never use, eggshell thin. I keep it on the top shelf and look at it and clean it every once in a while. But this particular portrait went to one of their nieces who lived up around St. John, New Brunswick, and she has since passed away. And it came to my brother, and he thought that I would like it, and I do. I absolutely love the thing. It's going to have a place of pride in my home as long as I'm around, and I hope to pass it on when I go to some other member of the family. I hope you'll try the Danish cinnamon snails and hope you have a very Merry Christmas. Danish cinnamon snails, my version with cream cheese icing. It's about the only thing that's different about them. It's a regular recipe, plus I like cream cheese icing better than just the glaze that they normally put on them. More calories, of course. The recipe, I will give you the link below as I usually do. The link is in cups and tablespoons and all that good stuff, and I've gone to the trouble of converting it for my purposes, because if you watch my videos before, you know I prefer to use weight rather than dry measure, but the dry measure is available in the link below. 1 cup of lukewarm milk. I just put it in the microwave for 15 or 20 seconds, get it up. It says 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 45 degrees Celsius. Well, tepid. And put your finger in it, it's just warm. And 17 grams of yeast. I'm using the instant yeast. The recipe talks about using cake yeast, which I have never used. I guess you can still buy it in some places, but I've never used the stuff. 6.5 tablespoons of butter, which converts to 92 grams of butter. I haven't got the eggs out yet, but 2 eggs will go in it. A 1/2 teaspoon of ground cardamom, that's this. 2 tablespoons of sugar. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which I'm not using because I'm using salted butter. If you were using unsalted butter, add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. But I don't want that much salt in there, so I'm not adding any additional, just the salt that's in the butter. And 4 cups of all-purpose flour, which is 512 grams. I'll get to the filling later when we have got this mixed up, and I'm Setting it aside for a half hour, we'll make the filling then. I'm going to try starting this in the stand mixer. The recipe doesn't specify. I'm not going to use the dough hook, at least I don't think I'm not going to, because this does not get kneaded for any great length of time. Anyway, to begin with, we'll put the warm milk and the yeast and the sugar and I think, yes, the butter. The cardamom, the 2 eggs, and about 2/3 of the flour. It makes a sticky dough, but you may or may not need to use all of the flour, so I'll start with about 2/3. Whoa, slow that down a bit, it's throwing flour. Yeah, it's quite wet, so I'm definitely going to have to add more flour. I'll bring you back in a second and show you what that looks like once I scrape down the bowl. You can see that with the glare on the plastic, but that's the finished dough, just taken out of the mixing bowl and put in a bowl and covered with plastic wrap, and you set it aside for 30 minutes. So there will be some rising, but I'm not expecting a lot in 30 minutes. Now it's a good time to make the filling while this is rising. The filling is 150 grams of butter. Once again, I'm using the salted butter. It's all I had available. 2 tablespoons of cinnamon and a half cup of sugar, white sugar. And this gets creamed together, so it's 4 or 5 minutes or longer. You want it well creamed so that it will spread easily. So I'll just let that go for at least 5 minutes, I think. Bring you back at that point. About 5 minutes, that it's nicely creamed together, and leaving it at room temperature to make sure that it stays soft so that it can be easily spread. I think this is probably a good time to carry on and make the cream cheese icing while the rolls, the batter, dough, whatever, is still rising. Instead, I'm going to use a cream cheese frosting for the glaze on them. I like the taste of it better than just the icing sugar glaze. What I'm making is half of a batch of cream cheese frosting. So I've cut everything in half because I don't believe I would need the entire thing for these few rolls. 1/4 cup of softened butter, which is 58 grams. 4 ounces of cream cheese, which is 113 grams. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I'm using the paste again. Those 2 ingredients get creamed together, which will take several minutes and maybe having to scrape them down 2 or 3 times. But I will be adding to that 2 cups of confectioner's sugar, icing sugar, which has been sifted to get rid of the lumps. I'll bring you back when it's time to add the confectioner's sugar. So the butter and the cream cheese and the vanilla have creamed together quite well. And now I'm going to start adding the 2 cups of confectioner's sugar, just a bit at a time, and slow. This stuff will go everywhere if you don't add it slowly. I'll bring you back, show you the finished product. It's probably still more frosting that I need, but couldn't see how you could make less than half a batch. And it is very good. I zoom in on it. Don't know if the camera picks it up or not, but if you see little tiny specks in there, that is the seeds from the vanilla paste. I just love the stuff. To me, it gives a much stronger and much better flavor of vanilla than extract does. So I've switched. I use it in almost everything. Well, now it's time to divide the dough into 2 pieces and get this ready to put in the oven. The oven is preheating at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, the dough did almost double, but I also think I've let it go a little over a half hour. I didn't really time it. And now it gets transferred to a floured surface and kneaded for 3 or 4 minutes until it is firm. Already that little bit of flour has taken the stickiness away from it. I'll bring you back when I have finished my 3 minutes or so of kneading. Well, I finished the kneading and it gets divided into 2 equal portions. As I probably said before, I'm no good at eyeballing it. I weighed. Each one of those weighs approximately 485 grams. It isn't rocket science. It doesn't have to be exact, but I never seem to get a balanced product when I just eyeball it myself. Now they get rolled into a rectangle, which may or may not be too so easy here. We'll give it a try. And the rectangle should not be any more than a ½ inch thick. I'll bring you back after I have fought with this and got it into its first rectangle. Well, we have roughly rectangular, and now the filling, try to spread it, about half of it on each one. Easier said than done, I guess, but this is soft as I think I dare get it. Let me put it in the microwave for a second or two and see what happens here. Bring you back and see if that improves matters any. Well, 5 seconds in the microwave did help matters a bit, I guess. I'm covering it, but I'm not going all the way out to the edge of the dough. Leaving, I don't know, 1/4 to a ½ inch, I guess, depending on how much of this stuff I have left to spread. I'll bring you back after I have it spread evenly on both of them. Now my misshapen rectangles here get placed one on top of the other. And try to make them roughly the same size at this point. And now it gets rolled into a log, we hope. The end pieces won't have very much filling in them. There is the finished log anyway. Gets cut into 1-inch slices and baked in the 425 degree oven for 10 minutes, watching it carefully so they don't burn. And if necessary, put a sheet of foil over the top to prevent them from burning. But I'll bring you back in just a second and slice these things. Either parchment lined or a buttered. Cutting back until I find the filling. There we go. Use those for something else later, I guess. 1 inch it says, so roughly 1 inch. And they should be 3 inches apart. So I suspect I'm going to have at least 2 trays. Yeah. I guess that's if you don't want them to rise into each other. I'll have more than 2 trays. May have to bake a couple of different times here. Now I will continue and get both trays ready. They rest for 20 minutes before they go in the oven. And if you can see the design here, one of the reasons they're called a snail bun is some bakeries take this, like this piece that's coming out, and you turn it up like that. So when it bakes, it does look like a snail. Sort of. I'll bring you back when I've got these all done and they've risen for 20 minutes and are ready to go in the oven. Well, this made 18. I've got a dozen of them here ready to go in 2 trays. The other 6 I've already cut and put them in the refrigerator to prevent them from overproofing, over-rising. So these are waiting there 20 minutes before they go in the 425 degree oven. I'll show you what they look like when they come out of the oven. Well, there they are, just out of the oven and just barely starting to cool. I'm going to pipe on some of the frosting, not in any particular pattern. I'm rubbish when it comes to piping, but I just thought that piping it on would be easier than trying to spread it any other way. So I put it in a pastry bag here with just a small round tip on the end. But I want to get them off of the parchment paper here before they cool too much, and the sugar fastens them solidly to the parchment paper. But anyway, you get the idea, I guess, of what I'm doing here. Nothing fancy, just putting some cream cheese icing on them. And I won't make you watch me do both trays. You can see this one, if I can turn it or not, but that's, boom, I'll break it turning it. That's sort of what suppose it looks like the snail. It has the snail's head on it, if you really use your imagination. I'll show you when I get all 18 of them done. Well, that is the finished product. They freeze very well, but of course the sticky frosting will stick together if you're not careful how you're stacking them. I would put them on a flat surface, a cookie sheet or something, and freeze them first, and then you could put them in freezer bags or whatever. But they do freeze very well. You can take them out individually and 10-15 seconds in the microwave, and they're just like they were cooling off after coming out of the oven. Well, I hope you think this is something interesting that you'd like to try with your Christmas baking, and thank you very much for watching.